What's going down, everyone? And if you're here for the Game Ready driver that we are conveniently have available now for Nvidia. So, if you already want to start downloading this, in the description down below, you can very conveniently add that, as well as the patch notes and a few other foot things that I directly put on those situational points of notes. A little bit easier on Reddit, personally myself. They let a digestible point. And as you can see, I have the pamphlet open readily for the 440.97. They stepped up. I was like, okay, because I was hearing a lot of different issues. A lot of great people reached out to me in the forums of the last one and explained the issues that the last two drivers had from Nvidia, but they did push themselves in the last I guess the 3 saga, so I'm hoping now with the 4 saga, a newer interludable point, what we're going to be getting in, and hopefully there will be some green screen action. I've been wanting to utilize their new AI portion of the tensor cores in the RX unit that I have, so we're going to be diving directly into the patch notes after we go directly over here, which is our benchmark for today's score. Now, I thought that this was really strange just for the simple reason, when I went to go compare the score compared to last time, you'll notice something very odd that I thought was very interesting myself. The system itself Kaioken, when I looked at freaking time spies directly over to over. So if you look at right here, it wasn't that bad directly in between that, but the last one was up by 100. So it was just one of those really interesting situations that we just basically came down to gameplay. But let's go ahead and as we can just close down all these points, and we'll be running some scores right after, get the actual update started. That you can very conveniently just click, go to your Nvidia downforced of your GeForce, and just download it directly under drivers if it didn't already prompt you. Shouldn't take too long directly inside of that situation, and as we go there, we're diving directly into the notes that are way past that, and the more convenient notes that are here directly on our release notes of Nvidia from convenient portion of the front page of the world, Reddit. So, as you can see right here, we have our Game Ready driver, which has been released within the last 24 hours. The Game Ready driver provides an increased performance that optimally gaming experience for the Call of Duty and the Outer Worlds that is going to be directly releasing within the next 48 to 24 hours for a lot of people that are directly following this as of right now. Now, those are just going to be portionally FPS boosters that may be particularly directly inside of that game only. Those two games that you can kind of see that are directly detailed right there. But let's go ahead and get the install started, which very conveniently went there. Now, I didn't have any issues with these before, but I really don't want to mess with it. It's always had a great install. That's one other thing I would like to say that Nvidia has over a little bit of AMD's patch notes, because I do cover both, is that the simple reason is that they do happen to be a little bit easier on the installs. I definitely do enjoy that the way they have it. But in tech news, as we get really down to here, as we can see the applications of the added support for the Windows G-Syncs and the OpenGL and the Vulkan-based applications, as in the gaming technology pushes forward. And the application in the SLI profile adds the update and the following SLI profiles for the Darwin projects and the Outer Worlds and the Nvidia turning GPUs only. So in that situation, you would need those applicable points in order to be able to utilize the full grand spectrum of that world would really be, because it is more of a Bethesda game, so you're really going to have a really better experience if you can run these things in a bigger, grander aspect. That's where it's actually where physics and all the other crap actually does matter a little bit, but it's very rare when a gaming company actually utilizes it. But moving on past that, the new features and other changes is the G-Sync is now supported on the Windows GL Vulkan application, as mentioned before. They do want to actually push that a lot. The fixed flashes and the frame rate drops that a lot of people experience during more than likely, I would say, the notebooks and the models and the G-Sync, which were lowering the two system refresh rates. Hopefully that was the situation that was happening. It seemed like Overwatch, a lot of people kind of put down that situation that it had dropped by almost 20 FPS, which is pretty big, especially for a fast moving first person shooter game. Just going on the situation of frames per second as well as the first kill per second. But as you're looking at the portion of what we're getting into as we go into the G-Syncs and the vocalization of going down to the game ready fixes that we have that are readily available. Before this, just please check out the next as we go into the FIFA 19 and 20 yet again, already making the list for desktop. What a surprise. They kicked that directly into the goal, this last one and this one. Apex roundabouts inside of the flickering occurrence on your screen. Not as bad as it used to be, but it's still on the list. And the Star Wars Battlefront randomly crashes on the desktop and occurs. When inside the situation of the GeForce RTX, the game might crash within a situation of the Growltopia. In the Tradesman, you might see an objects are missing in the game. Oh my, that would suck! Half your venture's gone! But the World of Warcraft keep flickering in the situation of the character selection screen. The Cinema 4D, trailing the ghost effects and appearance in the moving of the brush tools. Now, the shadowing point of the Shadow of Tomb Raiders, the game crashes and the hits TDR error. And Forza 4 in the colored corruption in the appearance in the game during the gameplay. Now the notebooks as well as the GeForce GT 970M, the GPU clock cannot boost beyond the base clock speed. That would suck, especially if you want to overclock that puppy. But the game ready fixes. So hopefully that these are situations that are going to directly, hopefully, impact you. And if they're not, folks, leave a comment down below. I would like to hear what you have for as far as the situations go inside of the day for day situations of what we utilize in technology. We are probably united all together, have the situational points of having the best collective information shared. But Battlefront, which is the not on the list, but Battlefield, which is making the list, is the HDR. When G-Synced and HDR are enabled, the game cannot maximize to the full screen. So unfortunately, you're not being able to get this, and you're minimalized in your taskbar. As well as in the Grand Theft Auto 5, Nvidia is working with the application developers to resolve these issues. If you'd like to go ahead and get that resolved, that is really great, and you can see that the patch note directly is in the situational point if you want to have more breakdown to the details. All those are directly linked down below. Now, for most of you people that are always here for as far as the overclocking situation, we're going to go ahead and get that underway. As we would say, goodbye to Chapter 1, and hello to new install. And we have some tests. We'll be running a few of them directly inside of them through the 3D Mark, which I normally always do, and try to have this pretty much wrapped up between 3 tests as we run Port Royale, as well as a situation of Fire Strike, and the interludable point of the captionable point of Time Spy. All 3 are great because they're utilizing all 3 different spectrums of the RTX 2080 Ti that I have installed, which is really great. So it's like you have your DirectX 11 as well as the DX12, and your Tensor Core is firing off like it ain't no problem, sons. But as we get past that situation, as we get down to it, let's go ahead and just start out with the Port Royale test, right? We're going to go ahead and go against our tests, and it would be really cool to see if maybe we can see some improvements. Maybe something that wouldn't always benefit directly for as far as Call of Duty, but as ray tracing becomes more of a modern point, as you can see inside of the news, is World of War tanks. Oh, those tanks now all in war, and they're shadowing, which is pretty cool. As you can kind of see that we're pushing forward inside of the next frontier of what we're going to be getting into as far as the news. Having these points are going to be strengthening where we're going to be going is the software base, and rumored is that maybe next month or the very end of this month we're looking at maybe a ray tracing ability software update from AMD. So as I'm covering Nvidia and it tells me to understand that we're doing right about 25 FPS, it's going to be very interesting to see what the FPS might be against that through a software base versus the Tensor Core base as the technology starts to evolve. Now, as you can see that the audio did definitely cut off on the screen directly over there. We can get up directly and go turn that back on, and I will go ahead and do that just for the purposes of tests. We have everything hooked up. Okay, so joys of the situation of what is at hand is that we're pushing forward with other teams entering the race. Now, personally myself, I do like when you see like Outer Worlds and other games that are utilizing a great spectrum point of stacking cards, because Intel, now that they're entering the race and they're looking at their entry to the GPU world within the mid-tier game, about like almost like 419 computing units, as we're directly going to be looking at them. And they're talking about bringing back an SLI type situation that has been tested on Linux, from what most have been rumored in that direct source. And at that point, I believe it was Momo online, that lovely portion of like tweets. But as we keep all linked inside the situations of looking forward and like having these lovely portions of where we get the news from, and as we come into port, as the Port Royale finishes its situation, as we will get a final test to see if it compares versus the install, post, and pre, which is the majority of what I love doing these actual physical patch notes for. Is besides having patch notes, it's also directly testing the drivers to see if the increasements are there. It would be kind of cool if, like, 3D Mark had some kind of like really cool test for like modern games, but they do a great job, honestly, as a team of people pushing forward. But you can see right now, directly as we push forward, as what we will expect to see, what will be a really great situation if Windows rolled out with an actual really tough like dual GPU rig from like Intel. Like, that's going to be really interesting to see that, and then Windows accept that and adopt that moving forward, because that might bring it back on a whole different spectrum of them trying to push forward in mid-tier, moving towards top tier, as AMD and Nvidia now are duking it out, and the models that are already being pushed past the RTX, which are rumored to like be approaching us like in like these situations past the 1660 Ti, whatever, or 1660, and now we're bringing back the 2070 out of retirement because we need a vanilla card. It's like, dude, Nvidia, we get it, you love marketing, that's kind of your thing, I get you, but stop it. Every month there's something you're trying to TI or un-TI or super or Saiyan, and or just what the frizzle, dude. Do you have a magic school bus and you travel through time and this is just your thing? Because you're doing kind of a good job at it, but damn it, like, I want to see progress in technology. And you can kind of see that, I mean, we have our situations where we could overclock it very easily and get into like the higher tiers, but we made it to the Hydra Club, and that situation, now we need to look at actual physical results. Now the physical results, we're going to go ahead and line up. As you can see, Port Royale, you can see that there is an improvement, roughly about 20 into the actual physical scoring. So that's actually pretty good. Like, for a Port Royale test, I'm actually pretty impressed with that. As you can see, I tested it before, and then that's just kind of like almost tipping over to the 8,000. So if I overclock that, as you can see in some of the cases where I can't overclock things, you can get it up to a higher score. We could probably get a pretty decent score out of that. So I think this update is pretty stable for like the ray tracing and utilizing the tensor cores. But let's go ahead and test out our DirectX 11. Now, personally myself, I like utilizing the very bottom and like going up to the very top portion. I don't see really too much changes within like 4K is roughly around like 20 to maybe 30 points at most. Like when you start to see like differences and variances, you start seeing a bigger portion on these cards that soar really well directly in like 1080p utilizing these. Like, I noticed like the first time I ran this test directly out the gate, it ran like cheetah, and it had like almost like 70 points more, and I was just like, what the frizz, this is crazy. But yeah, like, so looking at these points and like pushing forward of like where the I guess game ready drivers that are going to be experienced from Nvidia, and where they can kind of push forward, and we can kind of see that the temperatures, and now things are starting to mile down, and competitors are pushing them to push the cards even further and have the technology that we already have inside of our computers be the same technology that pushes us forward. Because quite frankly, it's frustrating when you buy stuff or you invest into SLI and then other things just like flop, and then it's like, you want to have your technology at least last for about 3 to 7 years. Personally, myself, that's like a good spectrum of a time, just because of the way that progress goes with the open technology involved and involving the like industry forward, as well as the situation of just its longevity of it being stable and working. Like, it's like, for me, that is doing extreme things like overclocking and constant tech work where I'm getting like this, it's like it does push a point where I have to like do more maintenance on my computer. Or luckily, thanks to like Gaming Nexus, that dude totally saved my butt on my freaking Intermex. Like, my computer almost like raw and like flared up. But like I watched this video and then sure enough my computer crashed and I noticed my temperatures were up by like 10 Celsius and I was like, oh my god, this is not good. And the wear patterns I noticed on the thermal paste were like very irregular when I took it apart. So I was just like, yep. I hit up like the like a seller and I was just like, yo, we do like I want to just like buy another one and like throw this back at you and that's cool. Okay, that's cool. So luckily I was able to get that done pretty easily and they'll just throw it back to Enermax and like I'll just get their newer model that's supposed to have like the fix which seemingly seems to be the gasket or something like that. But long story short, I mean my poor little Threadripper almost like took a tumble. But this process worked it really well. Like I like to think that like it was kind of like my test of seeing like where the FPS slide and it went right back to where it was supposed to be between like the 80 to 90 to almost 100 like in its normal just like range, not like tilting. I don't want that peak frequency like going to crazy. Like I'm really stoked though for like where the Ryzen tech is going to be inside of November, right? Coming up with Threadripper because that's going to be my second run inside the technology and pushing forward on a new tier. I was a little like frustrated where I was just like, oh my god, now I have to buy a whole new TR4 setup if I want to go into Gen 3 to go into that situation. So I was like, yeah, I want the 7 nanometer. Yeah, I want to utilize it well. So I already know how to utilize it decently out of the like chiplets that they have in the 12 nanometer, which is really good. I like it. You know, they do a good show in that situation, but I do like how like Zen 4 and Zen 5 are already in progress. So you have your 5 nanometer as well as oh my glob, and your freaking yes, and like your 3 nanometer already like working into play. Like works Zen technologies forward as well as like Intel almost scrapped like their 10 nanometer, but then now they're like no, we're still doing it. It's still a thing. Let's go ahead and compare some tests real fast. This is more of the interesting one right here because now we got up to 98% with just this update. We're going to go ahead and hit our results and we're going to go ahead and hit our fire strikes. Let's go strike up ourselves a conversation with fire strikes. So as you can see, this was the test that I ran prior and you can see why I was like, holy crap, that's ridiculous. 5,000 like 300, right? 5,000 no hundreds. What the frizz? That's like some serious droppage. Looking at the DirectX 11, so maybe they tuned it down. Maybe that was a lot of issues, like where it was like pushing the processor, where it was thermal throttling. Because if you look at that test versus what you have right here, well, it's just not my AMD. That's my Radeon tests. That's one of my AMD patch notes. I did a really good decadent like workaround of the old standard versus the new standard, so that's why there's hell of them in the background. But looking at this one right here, you can see right here, just looking at the normal fire strike, we have our normal test in the last patch. So you can see where I was just like, wait, what the hell? And then you look at today, where like it ran really freaking well, and then like it kind of balanced. So it's like you can kind of see that it maybe this update itself was very unstable because look at how it jumped because this was the same update back to back, like for as far as 4 and I believe what is it 11 or 12 or something like that. Where are you? No, right on the 6th right here. Yeah, number 16. So that test is pretty much identical where this is like more stable. So I'm hoping that trends. Let's go ahead and run a decent portion of it. Since we got our Port Royale, we got our Fire Strike, and we got to the portion, let's go ahead and run our Extreme test. Which is going to be our Time Spy Extreme, so we can kind of see a variant portion of it in the 4K for the DirectX 12, which I really feel like that's the one you need to test the 4K on. Like, I mean, no offense to DirectX 11, and I feel like they're doing a lot of like situations. That's the only reason that the ray tracing is even possible in this round for like the tanks and their shadowing is just they're utilizing that like DirectX 11, which is pretty amazing because it's like an open source that's really great, versus where DirectX 12 is like more. Like it's more up to the developer to like try to like do something where it's like 11 is like this tool from what I hear in the industry where it's very user friendly, it's like straightforward, but you can kind of see like as we get into this roundabout test as like the final portions of the testing is kind of here. It's been really fun to like run these and see like the tech community reach out and I suppose the support that I've gotten from like just doing these situations, which is pretty cool. So cheers everyone that's been like part of these like patch notes that watch them in the following days to come or watch it directly live or whenever they get to it. I know a lot of these get saved. I know that's like a lot of ones that I see on like I think it's like Red. Oh, cool. I noticed that this is like a big portion of what people like watching on my network, so figured I might spend some more quality time in that situation saying cheers. But looking at that portion of where Blades Sabers are shutting through that right there, the technology of where Intel is being challenged now with AMD on Tech Talk is the situation of just like, holy crap, 400%. They literally offered majority of like server-based clientele a 400% markup within pricing for performance, which is outdoing it and extraordinarily outdoing it for a good price. It's not that it's just doing it like where it's just like, yeah, it's 400% is like where the increasement comes from. No, they're talking about the factor of financial improvement, which is insane because you're looking at like something that used to cost like a ridiculous arm and a leg to just like maybe a finger, and like, you know, it runs faster than the arm and the leg. You're like, wait, this doesn't make sense, but it makes sense now. AMD just made it where they're pushing the industry, and it caused Intel to like put, I think it was like $3 billion into like development and study into the technologies to keep ahead in the former portion, because we're looking at until at least almost 2022 that Intel will finally be able to produce something that will be like in a contending portion that will be beyond. I feel like if they really, really want to do something, it will take them roughly about 3 years to kind of hit that beacon point of reaction, thought, counter, and that process of like where the development of the idea becomes a processed product that someone can buy. I know, and of course they have had product points where they can flip it around, but like where they're pushing the technology this far and into the future, we're gonna start seeing a lot of different things kind of come into gameplay, which is kind of cool. Personally, myself, I kind of like that, like freaking we have these points in interest, just because, well, hell, they're just really great points in interest for like the tech community as far as where we get into like what is out there sometimes and what is news on like reality of toe-to-toe updates. And it seems like this update actually is working pretty decent for like ray tracing, but it ain't working that decent. Well, DirectX 11, so you might see some more hopefully stabilization, I would hope, but if not, Jay, don't definitely drop that comment. Like, what GPU are you using? What processor are you rocking? How you keeping it cool? You know, basic stuff, cool stuff, literally. But as these situations, I would also like to know if these cause problems or fix problems, because I know sometimes these lists make them, but they're not always perfect. As you can see, this is my Threadripper. This is the only reason why it's even possible for this thing to rock like maybe a 10 FPS to 9 FPS in an extraordinarily HD, like 4K. Normally, like, my Intel would be weeping bits right now. It'd be like, I don't know what's going on, but it's ridiculous. And I'm just gonna run from it. Pretty much what it always does, but then it just like runs like maybe FPS or so. It's like da 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 da. It's the slowest thing I've ever seen before. But I mean, that's the 67K. That's 4 computing processing points of the yesterday of today. And just like, wait, what? What are you doing? I don't get it. It's great though. But we are getting down to the very final portion of the test. So as we get down to this, we will compare the very last final portion. But if you are new to the network, you can always hit that subscription bell. It's absolutely free. And who knows, maybe I will become Flynn and become inside of a video game. And then you'll see me and I'll be inside this 3D Mark one day. And I'll like poof and appear like kind of like I am right now, but more integrated. I'll be able to utilize everything more. Holy crap, you guys and gals should subscribe for that. That would be amazing. Anyways, all subscription humor aside, thank you so much for staying tuned on today's episode of the 440.97 update of the game rating driver by Nvidia, which is really great. I like to think that this is like actually a decent one. We're going to see our testing as it comes down to the DirectX. And let's see what that 12 cooks up with comparison scores. So, looking at everything installed, not too shabby. Right off the bat, for as far as what you would normally see. You think, that's, well, you could get better. I could overclock this and just like boost it. I mean, this is an RTX 2080 Ti, for Christ's sakes. This thing is barely pushing by. How dare they? These people that want to overclock. How dare they? Anyways, looking at that 4K. What is our direct results, though? Looking at this situation. Looking at Time Spy, or extreme to extreme. So, there is improvement. So, 4K, RTX, probably a pretty chill thing for this update. Last gen cards that are operating off of DirectX 11, you might see some more cutbacks, or maybe you'll see some more gains. I don't know. Drop a comment down below, and I'd like to hear from you guys and gals. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up as the patch notes for as far as today, because I want to keep this under 30 minutes. I already went a little too long. But I'll see you guys and gals in the near future. Have a great day.